Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to do my review of WWE's Smackdown. Starting off the night, we have Roman Reigns. He comes out to the ring with Jimmy Uso. He goes to grab the microphone, but he is interrupted by Jey Uso. Jey Uso comes out to the ring, grabs the microphone. Jey says that there was a lot of misunderstanding, especially after what happened at Crown Jewel. After that, Zayn comes out to the ring, grabs the microphone. Zayn then says that the kick that he landed on Roman wasn't on purpose. Zayn then follows up by saying that he showed up at Crown Jewel to help out Jey. Zayn says at Crown Jewel, though, it took him back to family. Says he missed the bloodline. Zayn says that he thinks Roman loves him. Roman then starts to smirk. Zayn then says the ball is in Roman's court. Zayn then wants Roman to apologize, but Zayn wants Roman to apologize to Jey. Roman then grabs the microphone and apologizes to Jey for wasting his time, saying that Zayn is not family. Roman then mocks Zayn. Roman then calls out Solo Sikoa, but Jacob Fatu is shown on the Titantron. Fatu hypes up Solo Sikoa. Fatu says that Roman will acknowledge Solo. Moving on from that, we go into our first official match of SmackDown. It is Bayley versus Candice LeRae. Thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Bayley and LeRae, with LeRae hitting a step-up enziguri on Bayley. LeRae was keeping the pace of the match until Bayley hits a roll-up on LeRae, pins her for the 3, and your winner of the match is Bayley. Hats off to Bayley for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we have a Randy Orton segment. Randy Orton comes out the ring, grabs a microphone. He talks about Crown Jewel. He quickly calls out Kevin Owens. Owens is standing on the stage, being held back by WWE security. Owens then gets past the security. It gets down to the ring. Owens and Orton both exchange in the middle of the ring. Security try to stop Orton and Owens. Owens then hits a pile driver on Orton, leaving Orton in the middle of the ring. Orton then was put on a stretcher. Rhodes then goes to the back with Orton, and then Rhodes gets into an ambulance with Orton when Orton gets transferred to the hospital. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night's tag team matchup. It is DIY versus Pretty Deadly. Thought it was a decent match. Back and forth matchup between DIY and Pretty Deadly, with DIY pretty much keeping the pace throughout the match, with Ciampa hitting the finish, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are DIY. Hats off to DIY for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into another tag team matchup. It is Jade Cargill teaming up with Bianca Belair, taking on Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton. Thought it was a good match, man. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Jade hitting a fallaway slam in the middle of the ring. Jade and Belair were keeping the pace of the match, with Jade and Nia both exchanging in the middle of the ring. LeRae comes out to the ring to attack Belair. Naomi comes out to attack LeRae. Nia Jax then attacks Naomi ringside, which allowed Belair to hit a KOD on Tiffany Stratton. Pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. Hats off to Cargill and Belair for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's another tag team matchup. It is Grayson Waller teaming up with Austin Theory, taking on the Motor City Machine Guns. Thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with the Motor City Machine Guns keeping the pace of the match. And the Motor City Machine Guns ultimately hit the finish, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are the Motor City Machine Guns. Hats off to the Motor City Machine Guns for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we have a Nick Aldis announcement. Nick Aldis was shown backstage. He talks about the women of WWE, but then he also introduces a new Women's United States title. This was a very big deal on Friday Night SmackDown. Moving on from that, we have the Tribal Chief Acknowledgement Ceremony. This was to pretty much end SmackDown. Solo comes out to the ring with the bloodline. He wants the fans to acknowledge him. Roman is here. Solo asks Roman to acknowledge him as well. Roman asks the fans if they acknowledge Solo. They say no, and Roman says no as well. Roman then challenges Solo for the right to be called the only tribal chief. Solo then mocks Roman. Solo says Roman can't be the tribal chief without a tribe. Solo then asks Roman to find people for war. Roman then mentions war games. Solo then says his 5th person is Sami Zayn. After that bloodline attack Roman, Zayn is watching on at the stage. Usos then come down to attack the bloodline. Solo then calls for Zayn. Zayn then hits a haluva kick on Solo. Roman then hits a Superman punch on Fatu. Zayn hits a haluva kick on Fatu as well. Roman then hits a spear on Solo. And the bloodline leave the ring. And then all of a sudden, Sami Zayn acknowledges Roman Reigns. A couple of things I want to talk about, man, when it pertains to Friday Night SmackDown before I get the hell up out of here. Man, honestly, there was a lot to really dissect when it pertained to Friday Night SmackDown, man. Number one, let's talk about the announcement from Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis was talking about the women of WWE. And I know they've been hinting around for a while now for a midterm or a mid-level title for the women for WWE. I know a lot of people are against this, to be honest with you. My initial thought of this was two things. Number one, I think personally, with all due respect to Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, I think the women's tag team division for WWE is just abysmal. It's not needed. I think a lot of unfortunately, because there's not many women tag teams in WWE right now, you have a lot of the same tag teams facing off with each other, whether it's Isla Dawn and Alba Fire, or Damage Control, or Shayna Baszler's team with Sonya Deville and Zoe Starks. You also have Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. So, there's not a immense amount of talent that are tag teams as far as females are concerned. They're kind of makeshift tag teams, if you honestly ask me. I personally think the women's tag team titles need to go. I don't think there's really a need for the women's tag team belts to be around. But as far as the women's United States Championship, I'm all for it, man. I think it's something that it entices, obviously, the women for WWE. It's another title that any woman on that roster can add to their repertoire, if you will. And I know a lot of people, since the title was announced, a lot of people were kind of pointing the finger towards Michin becoming the first woman to win the Women's United States Championship. I'm all for it. I'm absolutely all for it. I know WWE have been, we're pushing Michin for quite a while. I'm all for it. I think the title is great. I think obviously it gets the women more TV time, whether it's on WWE's PLEs or just the weekly episodic television. I'm all for it, man. But I will say this. I think for the women's tag team division, I think those belts need to go. I just don't think they have a strong enough women's tag team division in WWE to have those belts. And I think, unfortunately, the matches that they book for the tag team for the women, it's kind of stale, man. It's the same teams. A lot of the times it's, the Damage Control versus Jade and Bianca or Piper Niven. It's always the same rinse and repeat teams that are going up against Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. So I think if they can get rid of the women's tag team division and the belts and just stick with, obviously the main championship for the women on Raw and SmackDown, and then obviously adding the Women's United States Championship to SmackDown, I'm all for it. If Raw can do the same thing with the Women's Intercontinental Championship, I don't see really that much of a negative with that, to be honest with you. I just don't. It eliminates the tag team division for the women, and it gives the women of WWE something else to focus on besides the main championships for both Raw and SmackDown. So it also gives them a lot more TV time moving forward, especially with the PLEs as well. So I'm all for it, man. I think it's a good thing. I think it was a huge announcement from Nick Aldis on SmackDown by announcing the new Women's United States Championship title. The other thing I want to talk about, obviously, the main vocal point was Sami Zayn. Obviously, we all saw what happened at Crown Jewel when Zayn came out to the ring. It looks like he was going to protect Roman and Jay and Jimmy, but ended up hitting a haluva kick by mistake, taking out Roman Reigns. So obviously there was going to be a rebuttal there from Sami Zayn, which we got on SmackDown. But he was the main vocal point of SmackDown on Friday night, to be honest with you. And to be honest with you, I hate to sound like a broken record, but the Bloodline storyline, it is the best storyline right now in all professional wrestling. It's way better than the Moxley storyline because the John Moxley situation is going nowhere anytime fast, anywhere soon. This is the best storyline of all professional wrestling. And like I've been telling you guys for the past few months now that, WWE continuously keep adding these small pieces into this Bloodline storyline, and it keeps getting better and better and better. Now, there is a couple of things I will say with this. When Solo announced Sami Zayn as the fifth guy to his stable, where Zayn ended up turning his back on Solo and joining Roman Reigns and acknowledging Roman, it does beg the question, is there going to be a War Games matchup where it's 5v5? Where you have Roman, Zayn, Jimmy, and Jay, and the possibility of adding somebody else to Solo Sikoa, where he has Solo, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa. Is there going to be a fifth person incorporated for both these teams leading up to Survivor Series? Now, the question is, who would these people be? Now, on one side of the coin, you can look at someone like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which I mentioned now for the past couple months, ever since we saw him at Bad Blood. Will The Rock have some kind of incorporation into the storyline leading up to Survivor Series? Is he going to be a part of this, the War Games matchup at Survivor Series? Is he going to join the likes of Solo Sikoa and be Solo's fifth guy to take out Roman Reigns and his original bloodline? And then on the other side of the coin, you had to ask yourself, okay, well, who is going to be the fifth person for Roman Reigns? And the only logical person that I could possibly think of is possibly Cody Rhodes. But the issue that I have with this, Well, I think where as far as Cody Rhodes' direction going, leading up to Survivor Series, I think Cody does have some unfinished business with Kevin Owens, and I think seeing Cody Rhodes getting in the back of the ambulance with Orton and Orton getting taken away to the hospital, there might be another matchup here, if you will, between Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes, possibly at Survivor Series, because obviously Cody Rhodes is friends with Randy Orton. Maybe he wants to help out Randy by taking out Kevin Owens, so there might be another impromptu matchup here between Kevin Owens and Cody, possibly at this year's Survivor Series. But if not, and they decide not to book that matchup, Cody could be another logical choice. Cody has already teamed up with Roman already at Bad Blood, obviously. So I don't know if Cody would be that fifth guy to join Roman, where you have Roman, Cody, Zayn, and the Usos taking on Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. I don't know. But if it's not, I mean, I'm not also hitting a 4v4 War Games matchup with the original Bloodline and the new Bloodline. I'm all for it. But like I said, the main vocal point obviously was Sami Zayn. I think the Bloodline storyline right now is the best storyline going in all professional wrestling, whether it be on Raw, SmackDown, or even AEW. And the storyline's progressively getting better, man. Like I told you guys before, this Bloodline storyline has been going on for the past 3 damn years, and it's progressively got better and better and better, man. It's like a fine wine. It gets better over time, and I think the build-up towards Survivor Series, and I think the Survivor Series alone this year is going to be absolutely insane. It's going to be must-see. If just the matchup alone between the original Bloodline and Solo Sikoa's Bloodline locked in a double cage at War Games is going to be absolutely incredible. It's going to be insane, man. I'm a big fan of the War Games matchup. I've been a big fan of the War Games matchup ever since it was introduced in WCW. I think it's a great match to have, especially to settle feuds. So I'm all for it, man. I think this year's Survivor Series is going to be absolutely insane. This year, being headlined by the original Bloodline taking on Solo Sikoa's Bloodline. So I'm all for it, man. Definitely excited for it. But like I said, man, Cody's going to be a wild card in this. I genuinely believe, as well as Dwayne The Rock Johnson, is The Rock going to get involved in this, leading up towards Survivor Series? Is Cody also going to be a part of this? I don't know. I mean, I would say Cody's more of a wild card in this than I would say Dwayne The Rock Johnson, only because I genuinely believe that they're going to book Cody versus Kevin Owens again leading up to Survivor Series. Just based on what happened on SmackDown and the fact that Orton went to the back with Randy. Randy was on a stretcher. Rhodes went with Orton to the hospital in the ambulance. So maybe, Rhodes wants to take one for the team and take on Owens for what Owens did to Randy Orton. So who knows? Maybe it'll be a no disqualification match between Owens and Rhodes and Owens. So who knows, man? I don't know if we'll see what happens. But like I said, I think the main vocal point of SmackDown was Sami Zayn, the Bloodline storyline, and I think that now that we're starting to get the pieces put together for the lead up and the build up towards Survivor Series, I think War Games is going to be absolutely incredible, man. It's going to be must see television for sure to watch the War Games matchup between the original Bloodline and Solo Sikoa's Bloodline. So, like I said, man, there's really nothing I can really say negative about SmackDown. I really can't. I mean, I think SmackDown, fired on a lot of cylinders. Obviously, the announcement of the Women's United States title was a big deal from Nick Aldis. Sami Zayn's rebuttal for what he did at Crown Jewel, and now that we know Zayn has aligned himself back up with the original Tribal Chief. So, again, all steam ahead leading up towards Survivor Series and a War Games matchup between the original Bloodline and the new Bloodline. So, there's really not a lot of loopholes I can say in this storyline right now when it pertains to the Bloodline. I think the Bloodline is the best thing going right now in all professional wrestling. It's definitely getting fans invested and keeping them entertained, and something that we can all get invested in leading up to Survivor Series. So I'm absolutely all for it. But with that being said, this is my review of Friday Night SmackDown. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.